Welcome to Matt and Kevin Responds.
To the Board of Commissioners meeting on May...
Today's May 23rd. We just came back from the Board of
Good.
Commissioners meeting, the 7 p.m. meeting.
Strategic plan, I think, was the main topic. If you haven't seen it yet, it's at cobbcounty.org/strategic plan, where you can download the 38-page document and also give public comment as far as your response and what you think about it.
But for those of you who haven't been following, they got feedback from the public, about I think over 5,000 responses is how they cumulatively put it together. You'll hear people say they did work with Accenture to kind of understand how to put it all together, but it encompasses kind of everything from housing to transportation to everything that the county should be focusing on over, is it 30 years or is it 5 years? 5 years.
Which is part of the confusion for myself, because we actually also have a 2040 comprehensive plan. So how this, strategic plan, 5-year strategic plan fits in with that 40-year, and I don't really hear that 40-year comprehensive plan be referenced. And there's a lot of parallels to it.
Yeah.
But you would think that there would at least be some tie-ins or some parallels between, or at least some collaboration between the two documents that I haven't really seen as I dig into the documents or as I hear public officials speak.
Yeah, I've thought about it. I think it's good to have short and long-term goals. The 30-year plan, I think, is great. I think you need to understand where you're going, but also that 30-year plan is going to change 40 times over the next 30 years, right? So having a 5-year plan kind of helps you understanding what's happening now. But there's a lot of people that don't want any change in Cobb County. The county's changing. It's growing. It's growing really fast.
I thought it was interesting hearing some of the people ask for the results of the feedback by district or by area of the county.
Yeah.
And you have this narrative that we are one county, we are one community, that the community has these needs. And I find it kind of regressive when people sit there and ask, well, what do people in my direct area say about it? And my area is different than maybe a different area. And you see that a lot of from people want to see the East Cobb and West Cobb versus the rest of the county. And I think that setting a strategic plan for the entire county is important. And we're all in this together at the end of the day. And every time I hear, well, what about let's break it out into different areas or something like that, I get kind of, it sounds a little bit like a dog whistle to me. And it sounds a little bit like, neighborhood character, my neighborhood. I want my neighborhood to be and it just...
East Cobb doesn't have the problems that South Cobb has. Right. You know what that means when they say that. And I think people are speaking out of both sides of the mouth today saying, we voted against the cityhood of East Cobb because we don't want this to, we don't want this kind of government overreach. But at the same time, by not having the city of East Cobb, we're really concentrating all of our tax dollars to go across the whole county. And it's just, resources are differently needed in different places. But yeah, I think your point doesn't mean we ignore them. So I'm the East Cobb liaison on Commissioner Richardson's community cabinet. I've been in East Cobb for almost 20 years now. I love where we are. I love having a house on a big lot next to woods. That's why we moved there, and I want it to stay that way. I do, but the whole county can't be that way, and it shouldn't be that way. And there needs to be some diversity in how it's built, in how transportation works, and how everybody's connected. East Cobb isn't all of Cobb County. And I think everybody voted against the cityhood for East Cobb for a reason.
You mentioned it earlier, the county's changing, and the county already has changed. We saw the election difference in 2020, which brought in a different commissioner makeup. And you really see people still think that we're not going to change anymore. And at this point, the county's changing, we're growing. You either celebrate that diversity and celebrate that opportunity, or else it's going to be tough to stop that. So the question is, how do we change? How do we grow in the right ways? And that's where questions like sustainability, mobility, make equity, all of those things really start coming in to make sure everyone in the county sees that opportunity that they might not have been able to see in the past.
I think there has to be a balanced approach. I think you and I represent a lot of people in this county. I think some of the people we talked about who are on next door complaining about this, they also represent a lot of people in the county, right? But it doesn't mean it can only be their side. It doesn't mean it should only be our side. But there should be a conversation about the balance. And I think that's what this plan is trying to do. That's probably why they didn't ask what zip code are you in or what district are you in. It's really kind of holistically, what are the needs for Cobb? It doesn't really matter if you're in East Cobb, West Cobb, or South Cobb. The county has to deliver these needs no matter what. Doesn't mean they're going to tear down my neighborhood and start building like these like high-rise apartments. That's never going to happen. That's not what anybody's trying to do, right? It's just, where do we need more housing? Where do we need more transportation? Where do we need less? Like, this is how it's all going to balance out. But I mean, this report could have been 5,000 pages if we really got into like every piece of the detail everybody's complaining
It could have been 1 page. It could have been 5,000 pages. You probably would still have a lot of the same responses for and against it, regardless of how in-depth or shallow it was.
Anyway, it was a fun meeting. There's some level of entertainment at some point during these meetings.
I would say, say they last 2 to 3 hours. I'd say 2/3 of it is very dry, very, but there's always a third of all of these meetings where, and I actually equate it to sports all the time. If you think like soccer's boring or baseball's boring or football, or if you're a fan of those sports, there are also times when those sports are boring. I'm a huge sports fan. I'm a huge football fan. And there are football games that are blowouts, low scoring affairs, whatever the case is. And the whole stat of like there's only actual 15 minutes of game time in a 4-hour football game. And that, I think there's a lot of parallels to that and going, there could be a 3-hour community meeting and you get 15 minutes of highlights. And I think that's something that I've started to realize the more I go to these meetings.
So if you like the meetings, start following us. Come to the meetings. We can teach you how to get there and when they are there. It's just go to the Cobb County. It's cobbcounty.org.
It's the second Tuesday at 9 a.m. and the fourth Tuesday at 7 p.m. That's the schedule every month. It might change because of holidays sometimes, but it's always the second Tuesday at 9 a.m. of the month and the fourth Tuesday at 7 p.m.
And if you want to see what we're talking about, Cobb County does a good job of putting every single meeting on YouTube. Go to the Cobb County Government YouTube channel, click on live, and just look for an old Board of Commissioners regular meeting. I think it's called regular meeting. There's also working sessions and all that we can talk about in some future episodes, maybe.
And we realize that like 90% of people that will start will think this is watching paint dry. But there's that 1% out there, right? Like, that small where they get hooked. And but
that's the whole purpose of this, though. So we're going to try to boil it down and talk about the interesting parts. Today was all about the
strategic plan.
Yes. So.
Yep. And I think that there's always something that's very important happening. And I think being involved and starting to get more educated and seeing how all of the quirks and nuances start happening, I find it entertaining at this point. And I've gone to every meeting this year except one. And I think you've made it at least 80% of them or something this year. So you always see our faces at upcoming meeting. Call out, we'll be happy to introduce, sit next to you, no matter what side you're on, what you're for or against. Yeah, and
I think at the end of the day, though, the one thing you could at least say on both sides is people are showing up, becoming part of the process, speaking their voice, even if what they say is you might think is completely horribly horrendous. There is a level of respect I think everybody has with each other that people are at least showing up and just using your voice. You have the chance to get up and say whatever you want during these meetings, as long as it's not completely,
I will say there might have been some times where the level of respect might have been low from some commenters. The rhetoric has been very biting. But I do think that you're watching all the national politics happening. There's a microcosm here in Cobb County.
It's affecting you more. It's affecting you a lot more.
Yes. It has greater impact on your daily lives and everything. And I highly encourage to at least watch on YouTube or come on out on a Tuesday and see kind of behind the scenes how everything's done.
Matt, thank you. Oh, I hope this works. If you want to sponsor this show, just write Matt at mattstegall.com. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
All right.